Hi, I'm Luke Hanson MacDonald, and welcome back to Beyond the Family Business, a podcast where we discuss the unique opportunities and challenges of operating a family enterprise. Today's guest is my cousin, Colin Michael MacDonald, which is a little bit confusing because my dad's name is almost the exact same. Colin Michael and I are quite close, not only because we're cousins, but because we have very similar life stories. We both grew up in our family businesses, our fathers are both prolific entrepreneurs, and naturally, they were our biggest mentors, for better for worse. Today, our family businesses have evolved into multifaceted investment companies with investments in private businesses, real estate, and other types of securities. The big difference is that Colin Michael and his family are very hands-on. They have a very shared services model where they are literally in there operating their different investments, whereas we have more of a typical family office structure where we have third-party CEOs who operate our different private businesses, and many of our properties have triple net leases, which basically means the tenants manage them. Today, we sit down and debate the pros and cons of each of these investment company structures. This is Beyond the Family Business. Please like and subscribe. All right, let's jump into it. So first of all, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much.
It's great.
Big fan.
Exactly. My only fan.
Yeah.
Great to have you on. As I said in the intro, you're my cousin, and you're also in a very similar position to me. I thought maybe what would be helpful is, could you explain a little bit about the structure of your business? Because today we're going to sort of be comparing them, and I'll go after you. But
Yep.
Could you start off with that sort of 10,000 foot level of the structure?
Sure. So started with Micco Companies in 2006. Micco Companies is the combination of Mickey and Colin. So my dad and your dad.
Nice.
And my dad sold down east in 2005. And then, wasn't ready to retire. So he started Micco, and he started to kind of build businesses. So he had kind of a head office, and we bought the Chicken Burger in 2007. We bought Mills in 2007 as well. And so we had one kind of centralized accounting and team there. And then as we've kind of brought on new businesses, the head office has kind of been utilized as kind of a central accounting, HR, IT functionality, and all of that kind of is managed and done out of the head office.
Okay, cool. And how about as far as your different entities that you manage? How do you manage them? Do you have CEOs in each of the entities, or are you overseeing them directly, or what's that sort of that break between, call it, head office and the different entities?
Yeah, good question. So it's a family business, so we're heavily involved in all aspects of the business, and we in some cases have had different leaders in and managers in each of the businesses, but for the most part, my dad is kind of, as the CEO, has kind of managed and kind of directed all the businesses, and we have various levels of management in each of the businesses. We're slowly evolving that as different family members come into the business, and but for the most part, from a leadership and management is primarily done from head office.
Okay. And then the only other question I'd have is, as far as your real estate goes, how is your real estate managed? So you guys are very involved in managing the businesses. Are you guys managing the real estate directly and operating it directly, or do you have third-party tenants for the most part, or how does that work?
Yeah, good question. So we have probably we occupy a large proportion of our real estate. So warehousing, the restaurants, beverage and alcohol. And we would manage that all internally. So we have our own repairs and maintenance team. We manage the leasing for the most part. We will use commercial agents from time to time, but everything for the most part is all managed internally. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you guys are really a shared service model where your head office is deeply involved in pretty much all of your business affairs and operating them, et cetera.
Yeah, absolutely. Shared services. Yeah, that's a good summary of it.
Cool. So as a contrast, I would say we are much more removed from the day to day of our businesses in the sense that we have, again, sort of a similar history as far as, you know, at the beginning it was really a Holdco because we had one or two big businesses. Since we've sold those companies off, our Holdco has become much more of our investment vehicle. And then, our Holdco team is pretty small. It's really, call it 6 or 7 people. They're largely financed by background. And then our different entities that we have investments in, so the different businesses that we operate, other than the fact I went and ran one of those companies for 5 years, typically we have CEOs embedded in those companies, and then they report to us almost like a board,
Mhm.
or literally like a board. And then even with our real estate, again, we're generally speaking, most of our real estate is triple net leases. So even if we are occupying our own real estate, that CEO and that entity is responsible for the real estate. And so as a result, we only get involved really with big CapEx projects like a roof replacement and stuff like that. So it's an interesting contrast. And you and I obviously have many conversations about the pluses and minuses of these two, and it's not an obvious which one is better. So that's what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an interesting contrast and yeah, day to day responsibilities. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And one thing I would say, just, as I'm thinking about it, I think it's fair to say culturally, both of our families, historically were very involved, hands-on classic operators, both of our dads.
yeah,
And I think that has been difficult for us to step back from. It's helped having, a third party CEO in our investment company, and me going and working in one of our businesses in Ontario and stuff. But I think it's a fair comment to make that your structure is probably more organic as far as like the natural evolution of things, whereas ours, um, it's it's not as, I don't wanna say it's not as normal, but it's been a bigger learning curve to get used to, "Okay, we're not gonna meddle in the details of everything we're doing. We're gonna really empower leaders and work through them."
yeah.
But it doesn't come naturally to, like, an entrepreneurial business family.
It's a disciplined structure.
Yeah.
I would say you guys have a very well thought out and disciplined structure. Ours is, again, organic is a great description of ours because my dad, our dads, both very entrepreneurial, and building things from the ground up and really running the businesses by gut feel
Yeah.
and being in the businesses, being with the team and really feeling when something's off or being really feeling when there's an opportunity.
Mm,
And I would say that's one of the biggest strengths of my dad is, the flower and the seed. He can
mm,
really see that.
mhm.
And then he just goes after it and he's focused and disciplined, but working with the team and kind of bringing them along to his vision. I think, again, your structure again requires that discipline to hire really smart people that really know that industry and letting them
Mhm.
run the business, which is a little bit different from us where we want to throw family in there. We want to learn the business and we'll do something and then just figure it out.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. No, anyway, that's what we're gonna get into, not to get ahead of
Yeah.
ourselves. Uh, the one other thing I think maybe for context to start off, if you had to summarize, and this is gonna be difficult even for me to do it, and I've had time to think about it, what is the long-term goal of your family business or the purpose of your family business?
This has been on my mind recently, and I've been talking to lots of people to try and figure out, having great conversations with my dad and my family, and my brother and my sister. And I think really what it's come down to is we want to be involved and own and operate really great businesses,
Mm,
and we want to build the infrastructure to build really great businesses and empower people in those businesses to feel the energy and passion and exhilaration of running a business, growing a business, overcoming challenges. And so when I talked to my dad about, his, what motivated him,
Mm.
and that's what it was. It was the people who put barriers in front of him, and he just said, "I'm not going to quit. I'm going to figure this out." And the winning and overcoming. So I think for us, really, it's having great businesses where we can build great teams and a place for people to work and feel the energy of being part of a great business.
Hmm. Yeah. No, that's more succinctly put than I'm probably going to do. Yeah, I mean, if I have to answer that same question, I think of it sort of in three layers. I think, personally as a family, the big thing for us is that it's giving us some purpose, that, there's a reason that we're we want to know that we're doing these investments for more reason than just return.
Yep,
Otherwise, why not just own, an index fund and make it simple?
absolutely. Yep.
So I think creating purpose for our family is part of it. But then there's also a layer of creating a, purpose through the charitable community giving side as well, which again gives purpose to our family, but is definitely something that both of our dads had, they've done forever. And again, they did through their own gut instinct, and, you know, uh, often did without much recognition. And I think that's become a big cultural component as well, as to perpetuate that, community give support. And then the third thing, much more aligned with what you're saying, is the idea of, it's almost the best way to give back is to create good long-term employment. And it gives people purpose themselves, which, my dad really has reiterated that to me over time, is the idea of, if you give a person purpose, creates self-esteem and value. And not only can they take care of their family, but they themselves are much happier with life if they have a real purpose in life. And so, not to be too philosophical about it, but it, I agree with you of the energy, getting to work in a team with people that are motivated and excited to be there. And if you've ever been in a team where that isn't the case,
Mhm.
it's a stark contrast. And so, so yeah, so I think it's, those three levels for me is the personal purpose for our family. Then there's called the community giving element. And then there's the creating meaningful full-time employment. And as much as I would like to say it's about choosing industries we really care about, I don't know if that's true. I think it's really just like industries that we think we can be successful in, and we can create, meaningful value, and good places to work. So,
Yeah. No, I
uh,
think that again, that's we've been involved in all kinds of different businesses. We've never been afraid. And I think that's one of the things that my dad really brought to the table is we're never afraid to kind of jump in and try and figure it out. And that's the fun part of it. And to your point of, he built down east to pay the bills and make sure he could provide for his family. And he'll tell you all kinds of firefighting stories and down east stories. But the what really hit home when he started to make money and then see other people investing in themselves, buying
mm,
homes, and it was more of a responsibility for him to be successful for the people around. So we're in a really unique position to be able to kind of carry that through, and I think that's part of what we want to do is continue to um, build great businesses that people can be proud of, and
mm.
it's kind of agnostic on the industry that we are because we want to be in. We're not afraid to try. We've been in women maternities clothing, slate mining, beverage and alcohol, and all kinds of other different things. And each one we've learned and had a lot of fun doing it. Like met a lot of great people too.
Yeah, for sure. And hopefully me and you don't F it up.
Yeah, that's right.
Um, so moving on to, sort of the crux of this discussion, or the bulk of it. Could you talk about, if there's a couple places that you think there are real unique strengths to the way that you are organized as a business and your approach. What would they be?
That's a good question. I think connection with the people and the businesses. We're very visible in all of our businesses. Again, we're primarily in Atlantic Canada, so Nova Scotia and New Brunswick. So I think our connection with people and really bringing the family values into that and being visible. Um, and I think there's the efficiencies where we can we can see the whole chessboard of what's happening in one business, and there's opportunities and kind of cross pollination with some of those businesses.
Mm.
And again, from a cost effectiveness, there's shared services where we can share IT, share HR, share finance, and again, those folks also have the ability to see across businesses and what's working, what may not be working, and kind of use best practices from a continuous improvement perspective.
Mm. Yeah, that's really well summed up. I completely agree with all of those. And when we get to the challenges or the weaknesses, I think I will have some of those as a flip side for us. So for our business model, I would look at it as the biggest strengths are really probably the first one is that we are able to diversify consistently by hiring industry experts for each of our different investment groups. And so rather than us trying to become experts at everything,
Mhm.
which then, ultimately we can't be experts at everything. So then it makes it difficult to do that, in my experience. The benefit we have is that we are able to say, okay, we're in distribution of marine parts, we're in distribution of seniors medical supplies, and we're building automated equipment, and we can find people that are from those industries or similar
Mm.
industries that can lead each of those different businesses very successfully because that's really their background. So I think that's one thing, and probably the biggest strength. Another strength I would say is uh, the clarity of accountability. So,
Mhm.
because that is the way we have it structured, and this took time to learn because I would always accidentally overstep, having again the wanting to go back to almost the more organic model, which is your guys, is knowing to hold the CEO accountable versus always micromanaging. And that's a difficult balance to find. And once you get it right, it works quite well. And you got to have the right person. But so that clarity of roles and accountability, I think, is key so that you don't, I used to describe it as like, I don't want somebody to outsource their thinking to me. Like, if you are the president, you should be making these decisions. You can
Mhm.
speak to me about them, whatever. But ultimately, I don't want to be making the decisions for you. And then you don't feel you have accountability as a result. And then I would say the third one is really, I guess, more around knowing our place as financial experts. And I had Lee Bragg on here,
Mhm.
and
Yep.
I'm sure you know where I'm going with this, but he summed it up really well of how their investment group worked, where they almost protect the balance sheet. And I won't claim by any means that this was at all my creation. It was very much so our third party CEO, who is a CFO by background, more or less. And, our structure has evolved now where we really specialize in being the financial expert, meaning, managing the banking relationship and the finance
Mhm.
or the financing, ensuring accounting practices are followed, in some consistent
Absolutely.
manner, supporting M&A transactions. And so we sort of stay in our lane rather than maybe that's related to my first point, but those are probably the three biggest strengths I would say of our approach.
Yep.
Um, do you also see a benefit where you are, as you are building your own in-house knowledge of an industry, it's allowing you to then go after more opportunities in that same vertical? So I may never become an expert in any of our industries because of the way we have it structured. Do you, feel you guys are building that in-house knowledge where your understanding of warehouse distribution or something like that is then scalable?
That's a good question, and I think um, that's a hard one for us. I think the scalable part is what I think we're coming up to now. Is we because we've got a number of diverse businesses and we've worked across all of the businesses, we haven't become experts in any given vertical, and so this is part of, I think, part of the evolution of our business, and kind of learning from what you folks are doing over at HanMac is starting to look at how we're going to plan for that, and make sure we're looking at scalability and succession planning and long term building. So I would say yes, we have done that. Both my brother and I have both worked in the warehousing portion of the business. He's done an amazing job and really learned the warehouse software and the industry, and built relationships. So for him, for sure, I kind of grew up a little bit more on the restaurant side. So I would say that restaurant and retail are probably my two
Mhm.
areas of strength. So definitely can bring a lot to the table in those. But again, that's one of the challenges with our model is there's only so many family members, and at some point we need to start to look at hiring the professionals
Mm.
or specialists, and that'll be part of our evolution of working with those to have the discipline to take advantage of their experience and knowledge,
Mm.
and let them run the business
Mhm.
with the guidance of our values and what's important to us, and the scars that we've picked up over the years.
Mhm.
But I think we have picked up some expertise, but I would say we're more generalists
Mhm.
than we are experts in any kind of one of our businesses.
Mhm. Mhm. Okay. I mean, I think that's a good segue to the next question, which is, we talked about the pros of each of our models. What are the, again, top two or three cons that you would say?
Yeah. The it's one of the challenges is you're involved in a number of different businesses, and so you're kind of switching between different verticals, and so I'm meeting with this person again, talking about retail, and meeting with this person talking about warehousing, and so you can kind of get spread thin, and you don't get the specifics, or maybe some of the more detail conversations in those divisions. So I think that's one of the challenge. The other one, and I think you hit it on, is autonomy,
Mm.
and knowing when to be involved and when to trust your team to make a decision. I would say we're heavily involved and visible, and that's a with that where that's a benefit. It's also can be one of those things where, well, what do you want me to do? What
Mhm.
should I do? How should I do it?
Mhm.
And so you take some of that decision making, I guess, power out of the team's hands, who really have the right answers,
Mhm.
and maybe are deferring to you, and assuming that we have all the answers. And as much as we'd like to think that, it's at the end of the day, the people on the front line that really know what the customer wants, and what's going to bring more value. So
Mhm.
I think that would be one of the challenges with our structure, and yeah, I think those are the two big ones. I mean, there's all kinds of little things. And I would say the costs associated with the head office, and then allocating certain overheads to the teams, again, and making sure that those teams are feeling that they're getting value
Mm.
for the admin fee that they're getting charged.
Mhm.
That one's always an interesting conversation, because it's for the greater good, and we're investing for the long term. But again, it has an impact on their bottom line and their
Mhm.
incentive plans, and if they're not feeling that they're getting the value, then
Mm.
that's part of our responsibility as the leadership team, to make sure that we've got the resources for them that they're actually getting the benefit for. So
Yeah, yeah. No, that's an interesting one. Yeah. So, yeah, that's that is definitely a unique one. I hadn't thought about that. Okay, so on our side, I would say the biggest challenges, and I don't want to purely duplicate what you've said in reverse, but I do think that your point about synergies and a lower cost are both relevant to us. I mean, our model works really well when you have great CEOs that are highly competent, et cetera, and the businesses are fully self-sustaining, so therefore they can easily justify the cost. And I would say by and large that has been true, but then every once in a while you have one that's going sideways and, you very quickly realize there's a lot of overhead in some of these businesses because of the leadership structure you've created. So that is a challenge, for sure. I would say the synergies piece to tack it on to that one, because part of the synergies are obviously cost related, but probably equally as important is between different businesses, there are synergies as far as, just business practices.
Mhm.
And when you have different leaders in every business, it's not easy for all the same reasons. It is great from an accountability point of view. It's not easy when you do want to force some kind of a change from top down to say, hey, this particular software or this process worked in company A. We want to put it in company D because they're somewhat similar companies, et
Mhm.
cetera. So, and we've tried things before to have teams get together and share ideas. I don't think it's been successful, really. And so I think that's something you guys, by naturally being closer to it, you can maintain that. I would say on a similar level, um, our involvement in building the culture and and building our understanding of the businesses at a detailed level. Obviously, that's a sacrifice. And so if the CEO isn't doing a good job, then that's not going to work well. And so, I think that is something that we've had to learn how to keep tabs on those things
Mhm.
without sticking, our fingers in, but, noses in type of approach, as they say in the ICD program, fingers out. And as soon as you see something coming off the rails, then unfortunately you do kind of have to parachute in
Mhm.
and get involved. So I have made that mistake personally. So I definitely I see that benefit of when you are involved, you can, as you said about your dad using his instinct, he can tell when something's off culturally, or he can tell when something's off
Mhm.
economically or whatnot, something that's not showing up in the data yet. And so, that'll be my second one, and then I think the third one is actually family gratification, and this one is more about my dad got so much purpose from working in the business he built that it's and the jury's still out on this one. We'll see, how I feel over time because I'm very happy with the role I have. I'm not saying that by any means, and I really love the people I work with in the investment group, but there's definitely an element of the tangibility of working in businesses day to day, dealing with customers, et cetera. Like I'm quite involved in one of our companies right now that we've been doing some restructuring and some stuff in, and I'm meeting with customers, et cetera. And it's a really awesome experience getting
Mhm.
to go do site, visit strategic customers again and working with the team on strategy and stuff like that really energizes me. And so, if the goal is for this to all work perfectly, where I'm constantly at the operating or at the, sorry, at the Holdco level, I could see that gratification not being there. And so that's one that I don't know how it will play out over time. Whereas I think again, because it's more organic and natural to do what you guys are doing, there's some real personal benefit in doing it that way. Like it feels good to roll up your sleeves and be involved.
Oh, big time. It's, I was working at the car spa on the weekend and we had some issues with technical and you're kind of getting in there and working with the team and finding the solutions is a lot of fun. I think the one big challenge that we have is that, at some point there we're going to run out of family members. So we
Mhm.
have to still be able to find a way to make sure we've got good management teams and succession planning. But I think that's the other big thing that my dad wants to do is make sure that, the family members are involved in the business and connected to the business and the values and what we're trying to bring.
Mhm.
And work is not a bad word. There's a lot of satisfaction, to your point, that you get out of just those little things. And if you don't want to work in the business, then you don't have to work in the business, but you'll be involved at a higher level and really get to see, take some best practices and whatever people want to do. But yeah, I think that is one of the big things and challenges that we have going forward is how do we continue that
Mm.
into the next generation.
So you've spoken about it a couple times. What's the biggest bottleneck to growth that you guys are facing?
So a certain level of decentralized decision making. The family is very at the center of a lot of decisions and bigger decisions. And so trying to find a way to continue to be involved in the day to day operations or at the right level. And again, I think it's that discipline, like we were talking about before, of knowing when to get involved and knowing when to make sure to let the team kind of make a decision, good, bad, and different, and then learn from it and move on. So I think in scalability, because if the family is always at the center of a decision, or everybody's waiting for us to rubber stamp it, we're not going to be able to scale.
Mhm.
Because there's again, I come back to there's only so many family members. So really, it's setting up the businesses so that we have great leaders. They know what the guidelines are, what the values of the business are, what decision making they have, and when there needs to be more. More consultation or something along those lines. But I think that's one of the biggest challenges is that because we are in the businesses all the time and people see us and we're making decisions, and as we start to grow and move into other businesses or get um, uh, stretched in other directions, we need to make sure we've got the succession plan and the people and management teams capable to make good decisions. And again, make sure that we're building great companies for the long term.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, okay. So consistent with what you've sort of been sprinkling in throughout, really.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
no, that's very fair. Yeah, I think our biggest bottleneck, to be honest, and I think our biggest bottleneck is probably finding a balance between diversification and concentration. And what I mean by that is if you're concentrated in a few assets and they go well, growth is very fast. But if they go poorly, as we experienced in 2008, where our seafood business almost went broke, um, it's incredibly risky. And so we've intentionally moved to this very much so diversified business model with many different asset classes, et cetera. And it's done a perfect job of preserving wealth and having a moderate growth rate, et cetera, which over time will compound and really drive growth. But I do sometimes worry that, when are you too diversified versus still having a couple big bets in certain lanes? And I'm not 100% on side that I want to dramatically increase concentration, but I do from just seeing a lot of other investment companies, they will often do one or two things really well and have a massive slant towards those.
Mhm.
And while, theoretically, that isn't the best choice for wealth preservation, it probably is for just complete growth point of view. Because again, if it goes well, it really makes a difference. So I think that would be our biggest bottleneck is deciding what is that right balance of how much do we want to lean into our, what we're really good at, like doing private equity
Mhm.
versus having this very broad basket of, a multi-asset diversified investment portfolio.
That is pretty interesting because again, that's where you can bring a lot more value if you've got a really clear bulk kind of investment versus where we are, we're spread so thin. It's a little bit harder for us to kind of scale it and figure, okay, where are you gonna allocate your resources? Your two biggest resources, time and people. So um, that's one of our challenges is like how much time and energy do you put in each of those, or do you kind of just reduce it and just focus and do really really well at one or two things? So
Yeah. I
yeah,
think that's the constant debate, and it's the thing that, why people do get in over their skis is you can succumb to that and just be like, we're really good at these two things. They're going to do well forever. And then, like we've seen over the last 5, 10 years, there's been many black swan events where an asset class like office buildings or condos in Toronto or something that, by all accounts previous to that was doing incredible. And then just like in a moment completely got decimated. So
mhm.
I'm very happy with diversification, but you're absolutely right. It's tempting to wanna to be less diversified.
Yeah, I think one of your guys, my favorite one, I can't remember the gentleman, but they had built a number of businesses and then sold them once they kind of lost the passion, whether it was a family member that lost the passion for it or whatever. But they were always going into things that they were really passionate about and really focusing on it. So that's an interesting direction.
That might be the solution is as long as you really care about it, it's worth doing type
Yeah.
of thing. Um, okay, got time for one last question. If you could take one thing from our approach and apply it to your business, what would it be? And I'll
Mhm.
answer the same question for you.
Good question. So I think it's the accountability side of things, and the discipline to provide autonomy to your leaders in each of the businesses, and give them the strength and ability to make good decisions for the business. I think that's a really strong attribute for your guys' structure is that a little bit that decentralized decision making and really trusting and giving the autonomy to the teams to make good decisions for the customers.
Hmm. Yeah, no, that's very fair. And I think consistent again, as you've talked through this, that's come up a couple different times. Um, if there was one thing aside from your better dressing sense and the likelihood you'll never lose your hair, whereas I'll be bald in a few years, um, I would probably say I really uh, admire the the incredible work ethic culture that you guys have, which comes directly from your family and permeates down through your business, where you and your siblings and obviously your dad as well, you set a high standard based on your own level of discipline and work ethic and willingness to say I'll deal with any problem, etc. And I think that is a really important motivator of team members and a really key part. And I'm not saying we don't have that because I have team members that ensure that permeates through. But as my family driving that front and center, I think is quite admirable. And I hope I can, you know, drive that myself. But it's something you guys do naturally with being in your structure where you're embedded throughout it. That cultural effect of your guys' work ethic,
Yeah.
I think cascades down, which
Oh,
is
thank you very much. Yeah, I agree. And I think my dad really kind of instilled that. I think it came, for your dad as well. I think it came from our grandmother where, that's what you do, whatever it takes to, and lead from the front. And so I think, yeah, I appreciate that. But yeah, I think you guys are doing a pretty good job over there at HanMac for
yeah.
sure, and building great businesses and teams. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, we have a great team for sure. All right, sir. Thank you so
Okay.
much for your time.
Thank you. It's
Appreciate it.
good talking to you.
Yeah, good talking to you too. We'll have to have you back. Thank you so much for watching. This is Beyond the Family Business Podcast. Take care.